Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Eve Hemingway and I currently live in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam with my partner who's Vietnamese and my 3-year-old son. I'm going to talk about some things the government has done and also what maybe some cultural impacts have on helping reduce the spread of the virus. But I also want to add that everything that I'm about to tell you is all from my own experience. So if you have anything else to add, just leave it down below. So with that all being said, let's get on with the video. So a lot of what you hear when people talk about Vietnam and the pandemic is that Vietnam was hit quite hard with swine flu, bird flu, and the SARS virus. And honestly, when I was doing my research on this, I thought it was so strange because it's like history is repeating itself. So I read an article on the World Health Organization's website back from 2003, and it actually says Vietnam becomes the first country to be removed from the list of countries with local transmission of SARS. So even back then, Vietnam were being praised for their efforts. And even back in 2009, my partner was at school here and he says he remembers going to school and always having to wear a mask at all times, and every time he entered anywhere he would have to have his temperature checked in the ear. So yeah, pretty similar. So yeah, I think this definitely gives reason to why Vietnam acted so fast. Which brings me on to the first day of China announcing the virus. So I have heard some people say on Twitter that actually the timing of the virus was a really good time for Asian countries because it did happen around Lunar New Year. But honestly, I remember thinking that this could not have happened at a worse time. Everyone is traveling during this time, especially in Vietnam. Vietnam has, I think, about 10 days official public holiday, and every single person is off during this time. Nothing is open, but that means people are traveling. But actually during this time there were travel warnings. And then on the 30th of January, Vietnam stopped issuing visas to Chinese tourists, and Vietnam also denied entry to any foreigners coming in from mainland China, or even if they'd had a transit from China. So back in February, if you were coming from a country that has had the outbreak pretty bad, so that was South Korea, Italy, if you were coming from those countries, then you had to be quarantined for 14 days. And then in March, this was before the outbreak had happened in the UK, but we came back on the 1st of March from the UK and we had a lot of checks at the airport. We had to fill out forms and there were temperature checks as well. People that were arriving in Vietnam were automatically quarantined, or they were told to self-quarantine. This hasn't just happened because of the government, it's happened because of the people here, and they have abided by the rules. And over the past few days I've read that Vietnam are bringing back citizens to Vietnam, whereas before it was advised from the government that if you are overseas and you're Vietnamese, yeah, it was advised for you to stay there. But now they are arranging flights to bring people back, which is good. But as for other people coming into the country, I have heard that they will be denied and it's only Vietnamese that are allowed to come back. But I'm not 100% sure on that, so if anyone can verify it, just leave it down below. So in Vietnam, they also have an app, and every time you log into the app, you have to declare your health status, and also there's a map on the app. So if there is a person that does have the virus, it is pinpointed on the map, the exact location, and it has some other details on there. But I did go into more detail about that in a previous video and showed you around the app, so I will leave that up here. But the good thing about this app is that you know the exact location of where people have been if they have the virus, which means that these locations are often completely quarantined. So the government does warn people about going into these zones. It has a warning on the app as well. So you find that these places are really quiet. So as well as the app, we also get text messages and Zalo messages from the government just giving us an overview of the day and issuing any more warnings or so they are very much keeping us in the loop with that. Also, during the lockdown, it was announced that we shouldn't be travelling between provinces and even districts unless there was like a valid reason to do so. I'm not sure if this still is the case now, but they did announce that when people were coming into the city, they had to be tested and they had to be quarantined. So some of the things that basically the rest of the world is doing now are people working from home, schools are closed. Schools have actually been shut since Lunar New Year. So yeah, kids have been off for about 3 or 4 months now. Okay, so that's it for how the government has handled it. If there are any more things that you want to add, then let's have a conversation about it down below. Now I'm going to get on to why I think the Vietnamese has handled it so well, mainly through the cultural aspects of it. So somebody did ask me on Twitter about how the economy is here, and honestly, I mentioned it in my last video, the economy has suffered a lot because things have been closed for so long. Unfortunately, small businesses don't get any money, but some of the things that the government has done is reduce the price of bills, and also landlords have been giving reduced rent. I know some people that have been getting a 50% reduction on their rent, which is amazing. So yeah, obviously it's had a really big impact on the economy. It's having that same impact in every single country. But here I feel like it's a little bit different because there's no welfare system here, really. Vietnamese have a lot of savings. It's very typical for Vietnamese to have money to the side for events like this. And also, the reason that they might find it easier to save, it is very typical for Vietnamese to be living in a household with 4 or even 5 generations. So it's really not looked down upon here to still be living with your parents when you have children. Also, of course, there's a lot of poor people that live here in Vietnam. The Vietnamese government have put rice dispensaries in these poor areas, so people can go and take their bags and get just a big bag of free rice, which is really good. Okay, one more thing I want to mention is the masks. Even before, when somebody was sick, they would wear a mask at work to stop other people from getting sick. So yeah, it was very easy for the government to just say, it's compulsory now, if you're out in the public, you have to wear a mask. And because most people do anyway, like everyone just did it. I just want to finish off on some statistics. It is currently the 28th of April 2020, and in Vietnam there's 270 cases, 222 recovered, and 0 deaths. If you have any more questions or anything to add, then leave a comment down below. I hope this gave you some insight on how Vietnam has handled the pandemic. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.